Hey everyone, Ekman here with another video, and today we're going over both of the raid and trade events that happened this past weekend, both the regional as well as the Treasure Cup that happened online for the EU region. And real quick before we get started, first shouts to Raid and Trade for running the event, also streaming the event, and also for providing the deck list. Also, make sure to check out all of these deck lists. They're on my website, Eggman Events, which are linked in the description below, which is where both these pages live, as well as if you guys enjoy these videos, these breakdowns, and everything else, please make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. You're going to get a lot of notifications for future tournaments, coverage, and everything else that we do on this channel. And also, I would really appreciate it. But going on into both of these top 16s, they were both 512 player caps, and we do see these top breakdowns. Also, as I said, they should be linked in the description, but also on the page they did live stream these tournaments, so that should be on their Twitch channel right now. I'm not sure if they're re-uploading it to YouTube, but those, that information is there for you guys there. And looking at the regional event, and pretty much both, we're going to look at both events pretty much the same way. And something that's kind of glaring for this is that for both events, Zoro, Trafalgar Law, and Newgate took up 75% or more of that top cut. So we do see it. Only 3 decks did not, include red for them for the regionals, as well as only I think exactly 4 decks did not include any red. So Rob Lucci was in both days, with one of them taking the Treasure Cup event, as well as the Katakuri sneaking in for some yellow, and also a Linlin here, and a Nami, which we haven't looked at from a tournament standpoint either. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to look at the lists and go over them as well. But we're going to start off with our first place list here. We're going to look at our first place from the regionals. This is Iason's Zoro, which we have been seeing a lot of Zoro. I don't think that's anything too crazy for this. We have been seeing a little bit more of like this version, which runs the events. Obviously, Buggy is a very good card that people would like to use full advantage of, so using the event version. We did see for the Carta Magica regionals that happened during, or sorry, the Play TCG regionals that happened this past weekend, that the winning deck was a Zoro that had no events at the same time. So I think there is some like diversity in the decks that Zoro can run, but it is still Zoro. It is still Zoro at the end of the day, which is a little frustrating at times for some people. But this is the build here. It's very strong. Obviously, good support for red. And just kind of the events here. I do like the Fire Fist. I think at least one is needed for most Zoros, especially since we did see so many of those Trafalgar Laws in those top 16s, and I think that's really important. So here's Aeson's version of the deck there. Congratulations for that. Then also we have Sebastian with their first place on the Rob Lucci, and shout out to Sebastian as well for reaching out to me and helping me direct some things for getting all this event coverage going down. So I really do appreciate him reaching out. And with Rob Lucci, which is one of my favorite kind of leaders and just play styles in this game right now. So this is more of the Navy build. We don't see the Eridor specifically. We don't see the brand new. But I also will say this is a really greedy build in a lot of ways. Like I almost want to say like almost half the cards don't have counters in this. We do have like 4 Kuzans. We have 4 of the Sakazukis. We even have 3 of the Garp from the Star deck, so you have a lot of ways to remove. And the only issue with that is that like these removal cards do need the additional plus 1k, which is a little bit rough, especially when you're thinking about Rob Lucci's. To activate his effect, you have to discard 2 more. But you have so much removal. You have Isho to help probably mitigate and kind of even out the amount of hand discard you have, but also just 2 of the Kuzans as well, so just a lot of cards without counter. We have 2 Meteor Volcano, which I have been enjoying in this format. This does hit a lot of things, and especially with some of your effects that do reduce costs, it can hit some very important cards, which is really nice. Also, the Hina, which we haven't been seeing as much play in this set. So it is a Navy card, it is a blocker. It's a 5-drop 6k, and then also has on block, choose up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less. The chosen character cannot attack during this turn. So having another blocker is pretty strong. I know a lot of people have been playing like the Blue No to kind of put it into the CP9 sub package, but this is a blocker all the time, which is nice. And of course, being Navy means it's searchable off the brand new and everything else. So I'm gonna have to try out this version. It does seem like you do have a lot of, again, a lot of cards that could potentially be dead in hand, but it did win. It went 9-0, and just big congratulations to Sebastian on their finish on this one. Next up, we have Trafalgar Law, and we've been seeing this guy for over 6 months, and it hasn't been doing anything. Like the biggest development I think that has been added to this deck is playing the four-crossed Brook from the film subarchetype, just because this is a Straw Hat, which means it's a red card that can, or sorry, Nami can find it, and it's a green card, which is really nice. But additionally, being able to play a film or Straw Hat type character with cost of 3 or less from your hand on play just means you can go wider on the board, which means you can play your own Brooks. You can also play Nico Robin and any of these Zoros, so there's a lot of good targets you can do. So if you only have 4 Dawn, play Brook, play a Nico Robin. That's fantastic value in a lot of ways. So that's very, very strong. But even if you just play like a blocker or even like another Nami or something, being able to just go wider on the board faster means that Trafalgar Law is in a good spot. And then just kind of everything else we see. 2 copies of Radical Beam, 3 copies of the Starter deck Trafalgar Law, and then 4 of the blocker here. So I think this deck is just kind of like very good, and I don't think that's too crazy to say. And I don't know if there's anything that needs to be changed from this. I know it's been pretty much the same for a long time. It's been doing very well at the same time, and it's honestly like one of the, I think, most consistent decks, and also just best like matchups across the way. So most of the time when Trafalgar Law loses, it's due to its own choices and not as much as your opponent. So I think that's kind of susceptible of maybe some change as well. But I think this is a strong list. Everyone kind of has their own brew a lot of the time. And congratulations to Francis for their 2nd place finish there. Next up, we have our 2nd place from the Treasure Cup. This is Delmas with their Katakuri. And this is, we're going to see this a lot. There's so many greedy builds. There's so many greedy builds I saw from a lot of these. So for this build, we're running so much of our top end. We're seeing 4 of the Charlotte Linlin from the Star deck, which honestly, I've been enjoying this one a little bit less lately, just because it is really good on turn 7, but there's also like just some weird matchup things where your opponent doesn't really care about taking the life, especially if they're ahead. They really don't care about it, and it doesn't really impact anything on the board outright, and it's kind of stuck in your hand late game. 2 of the Charlotte Katakuri, which I've been liking a little bit more, which is unfortunate because it's a little bit harder to get this guy, but I do think he can be very strong. Then also 4 of the 10 drop, which is not so greedy. I think a lot of people use this at 3 or 4 copies, so I think that's not so much. But 4 of the 7 drops is quite a bit. I don't know if I would recommend that all the time, but it did get 2nd place, so they probably want to swear by that. But also we have 2 of the Sovereignty as well as 4 of the Thunderbolt. And additionally to, like, most of the time when people run these greedier packages, they are running a lot of copies of Shirahoshi, but without having, only having 2 copies of this, you could have some kind of bricked up hands as well. So also the Opera, which I do really like, the 4 drop here, the additional one I think is very strong. I do think you are kind of missing out on the 3 drops. You only having Perispero kind of hurts you at sometimes too, but this is a very good like tempo-based deck that can do a lot of poke damage. And if you're just trying to be like really obnoxiously aggressive with like this life gain or life depletion with the Linlin, that kind of makes sense. If you want to see this every time you have 7 Dawn, running 4 copies will definitely get you there, and that seemed to have worked for this event. So congratulations to for Delmas for their finish there. The next up we have our Newgate. We're going to look actually at 2 Newgates just because they're a little bit different. They're both from the regional. So we have 7th place for Jakov here with their version of it. And this is kind of like the more, I'd say, standard package. Most of these cards are at 4-ofs, right? I think the kind of flex cards are what vanillas you want to run. So Atmos or Kingdu, and also Thatch, which I think more and more people are going, Thatch at 4 copies is very strong. If you play this on turn 6, there's a lot of decks that just kind of don't have a really good way to get rid of this is really nice. So being able to invest 6 Dawn on this and just have a really good like poke card for the rest of the game helps you out a lot. Obviously 4 of the Newgate, 2 of the Ace, and then your good old events with, of course, 4 Rad Beams, 3 of the Guard Point, is 3 of the Whitebeard Pirates, which obviously can help you find pieces that you're missing if it's hitting your life, which doesn't happen as often. But if you're trying to guarantee that you can drop this Newgate as soon as you get to 9 Dawn, using the Izos and the Whitebeard Pirates is great, as well as like Marco can always pitch the Whitebeard Pirates. Either one can do that. So I think this deck is strong. It's in a really good spot, obviously, and Newgate is definitely, maybe I think Zoro is still consistently a little bit stronger, especially with the Moby Dick getting banned, but I think this is still a very, very good leader, right? We also do have kind of like the more traditional, at least traditional in the set 2 way of the Straw Hat version, which is still very viable right now too. So being able to just run like additional 1-drop searcher in Nami means that you do have a lot of cards that you can be playing on turn 1 and 2, which traditionally you're not able to do as much on this version because you really only have Ezo or Bust. So being able to have like the additional copy of Ezo is great. And then turn 1 and then turn, you always want to go second, but going, on your 4 Dawn play, you can either play the Atmos or the Luffy, and then you can go either Luffy or Marco on 5 or 6 Dawn and keep going from there. So this is very aggressive. There's only one copy of Newgate too, which is kind of interesting for that ad, and then 4 Rad Beams and 2 guard points. But obviously more of kind of like tempo aggression with this, just getting some big bodies, getting some really good swings. And like the most obnoxious ways to play against Newgate is if they always have something to attack into, but they always have 6k or more. So if you just attack with a Luffy and they have to attack into something, attacking the Luffy or attacking into Newgate is pretty much the same thing, which is really, really rough sometimes depending on what deck you're playing. But this is the list here. Congratulations to Federico for their finish with the Straw Hat version as well. We got 2 more lists. We're going to go over the Nami, this is the first Nami that I've seen top an event since OP03, at least in the non-Japanese meta, right? So this has been a deck that I think a lot of people have been trying to test with and trying to top with. And this is Sergio's build here from the regional. So this is looking, I've been testing this deck a good amount as well, and I do think there are some goods and bads with it. So first, I think Soga King, which is a bit of a decisive card. I think some people are trying it out and seeing if they want to keep it. Sometimes it's a little bit expensive because it is 7 cost, but it is a 1k counter, and it does, bounce something back to hand in either player, so it can set your opponent's back a turn, but also it can use it to draw 2 and trash 2. So being able to get your own cycle and get more cards out of your deck is very good for Nami. But then this is running like probably the fewest amount of character cards that I've really seen for this deck. We see 4 Kayas, 3 Nojikos, 3 Mr. Ones, 2 Belmirs, 2 Mihawks, and 4 Zefs, and that's it. There's not a lot of other things. There's no blockers. There's no buggy to help you find your impel cards. It's just these few couple cards, which I've had issues with being able to help trade on board or get some advantage for it, but this seems to have worked here for Sergio. So not going to knock it there. I will say 4 Desert Sprada looks like a lot. I do not like this card very much. It can help you set up your the top cards of your deck, which is nice, but it's also kind of tricky to just find the time to play it, and sometimes you just like kind of mess up the top cards of your life if you're not careful with it too. So especially if you hit something off your trigger, so you can use Desert Spada, expect to have something, but then you're going to have to then afterwards trigger like Impel All Downs or Impel Down All Stars are Rubber Band of Doom, which is going to make you discard the top card of your deck. And so setting that up correctly is very tricky. So, but it can be done. Obviously, it can help you out there. Deathwink, I think, is a really neat card for this deck. And you have to be really wary about it. If they have 3 Dawn up, they will just discard their entire hand, Deathwink to get out of it, and then just draw 2 cards, which is a little bit scary. So otherwise than that, I think this deck is pretty good. There's a lot of good things with it, and you're not prepared against Nami, then it can really catch you by surprise. So this is the list here. Congratulations to Sergio for their finish and being the first Nami to kind of get a top in the worldwide release in the OP03 meta. So congratulations there. And lastly, we do have my favorite leader right now. It's Lucas with the starter deck, Charlotte Linlin. And you're going to see a lot of similarities with this deck compared to the Katakuri, but there are a couple differences with it as well. So being able to, I would say like there's more tempo with Katakuri more times than not, but if you want to play Linlin, it's more of, I'd say, leaning towards control. You want to get to more of the late game, and you also can get a little bit more aggressive with some of the event cards that you're running, because you can put them on top of your life and make sure that they get their trigger, which is usually the biggest strength for a deck like this. But generically, some differences we see here. This build's not running any of the 8-drop Katakuris, which is, I think, okay. I started off with the Charlotte Linlin and then kind of transferred to the 8-drop Katakuris, but I think both are good in their own right. You just kind of need some higher end cards, but I think the other kind of benefit for this is just the vanillas, which I disregarded as not good at the beginning of this meta, and I was, I think, promptly wrong. So being able to play Peckhams is great in the sense that you really, really need to be playing the tempo game. And there are just so many times where I'm like, wow, I'm on 3 Dawn, which is 1 Dawn less from all my really good 4-drops, right? And I really need to be able to play something. So instead, playing Peckhams, just being able to get more searches. Worst case, it's a 1K. You're not too terribly sad about it, and kind of go from there. Also, only 2 copies of Cracker, kind of more leaning towards the Daifuku, which can draw you a card, which is nice. And then Opera and Baron Tamago, which both of them being able to use them to just be 6Ks, which are a little bit harder to interact and is the good number for when you're playing against Newgate a lot of the time. So I think all these are very good. Some kind of choices that didn't end up being in the deck that I see. There's no Shirahoshi. There's no Soul Pocus, which I personally like running a copy or two of, and just a couple last copies of Cracker too. So, but obviously, again, I really like Linlin. Really happy we got another top 16. And congratulations to Lucas for their finish there. But that's going to be it. This is my breakdown for both these events. Again, thank you very much to Raid and Trade for hosting the event, for live streaming the event, as well as for putting up these deck lists for us, as well as if you guys appreciate these videos. If you've made it this far, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button because you obviously like my content. And that is going to be it for me. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all next time.